the future engineers, our science students, um, we all invite you to this platform where we want you to follow us to understand physics. It is a particular subject that a lot of students find very difficult. Because of that, and as experienced um, student and tutor over the years, um, we find it relevant to take our time step by step in order to present to students out there the opportunity to appreciate and understand what physics really want to point out. So follow us on this series as well, so that we get to build a concept, so that we incite the love for physics in you. For engineering or for any future endeavor, physics plays a lot of part in our life. So let's get into that, and then let's introduce ourselves to physics. There are some basic things that every physician should know, right? It heavily depends on numbers. That's mathematics. So we need to work on our math. So we follow our video series on mathematics, so that we get a lot of concept for you over there as well. Now, for our introduction to physics, we say physics requires a lot of things to understand. Then, what actually is physics? We know it is in science, right? It's another branch of science. But what is physics concerned with? Why is it separate from others? Why should it be studied as a separate body? What is it that students are not getting, or what is the understanding of it? What should we get at the end of the day from physics? And it's making it tough for us to deal with it. Understanding what physics has to do and introducing us to the basic tools of physics will help us see the clear picture of the angle the physics is taking, is trying to give us knowledge, because science is just a method of acquiring knowledge, right? So physics is also one method of acquiring knowledge. Now, the very first question that we keep on asking and asking is, what is physics? Um, Physics is a branch of science, basically in layman term, is concerned with studying physics, studying force or energy. You are going to study force and energy. So you study force, you study energy, and then you study matter. Then this force and energy, right? It's very important to know the relationship between them. So the physical things, of course, you are going to explain physical things, but physics is more concerned with studying force, and then studying matter, studying energy, and see the interactions between them. Yes. So you are going to study matter, you are going to study force, you are going to study energy. No, it's not going to stop there, but you are going to learn how they interact. For example, let's say when you are going to open a tap pipe, if you are going to open a tap, you apply a force. So when you apply a force, the force will turn the tap. But in doing that, there's an energy that was used to open the tap, or to me, there's a particular work that you have done in that process. So the force that you have used, the energy that is translated into, and the effect of that component on matter is what physics is concerned with. Why should you even learn force? Why should you even learn energy and then learn interaction? Because everyday life, right? We do everything we do is almost physical. Physical, everything we want to see is physical. Even miracle that we want to see something physical, right? That's why it's very important to understand how these things play around, how they interact. So what is physics? So physics, it is the study of matter and energy and their interactions. So if by matter I mean anything that is around you that has um, space, that has volume, that has weight, anything around you like desk, table, pen, all of them are matter. But then, what is physics doing? Physics is studying matter and it's studying energy. In the energy, you can see force over there making the energy, right? So you're basically studying force and matter, or matter and energy, and their interactions. In basic term, that is what physics is concerned with. So every knowledge that you are going to get that involves studying matter and energy and their interactions, you are basically doing physics. And behind that, below that, there are lots of things to know, especially with mathematics, right? But then don't panic. We are going to take you step by step. So I know that at this level we've got the understanding that in physics we are going to study matter, we are going to study energy, we are going to see how they interact and affect each other. Okay. Then what is the first component that we need to see? We are talking about matter all the time. What is matter? Matter is the measure of quantity in a substance, right? The amount of quantity in a substance. Anything that has mass and occupies it. So mass is the amount of quantity in a matter. Sorry about that. So that's mass. That's the definition for mass. Um, then we need to understand that if you have a cup of water, the water in a cup, right? There a quantity of water in that cup. So we basically measure stuff in physics. A lot of things, a lot of time we do a lot of calculations, because in those calculations we are trying to do measurements. And in those measurements are related to stuff in matter. And we say that matter has masses basically, or anything quantity. So it has a quantity. So water in a cup is a quantity of water in that cup. So basically I've mentioned some term called a quantity. What is quantity? Let's see what is quantity. So that's our next concern now. What is quantity? Let me just give you the definition here. Follow me. I'm be typing for you, and then when there's a session for calculations, I will use the pen and write for you. Now, what is quantity? It is anything that can be measured either by an instrument or by means of calculation. Yeah, basically that is quantity for you. Quantity is anything that can be measured either by an instrument or by means of calculation. So there are some stuff that you can use calculation to do, or sometimes that you have to use instrument to do that. For example, let's say if I ask you to tell me what's the current time, what will you do? You're going to be looking for the device, for example, your watch, your clock, or maybe checking on your phone, right? You are using an instrument to tell me the time. So time is a quantity that you want to tell me, or it's a quantity that you are measuring. But in that measurement, you are using an instrument to do that. So time is a quantity, right? So if I ask you, um, let's say you have run for some kilometers, and I ask you, oh, how far have you run, right? Then you tell me, oh, I've run 100 meters, I've run this, I've run this more than this, or what point or what marks did you get in this class? So you are trying to measure some number, you are measure quantity values, you are trying to measure distance, you are trying to measure um what again, volume of the water, right? All those things that you are measuring for matter, anything of matter that you are measuring. So let's say we take a cup. For a cup, we can measure the volume of the cup. We can measure how heavy the cup is. All those various things on the same matter that we are measuring, all those things that we are measuring, they are all quantities, right? So you might take a laptop, for example, then you want to measure the weight. The weight of the how heavy the laptop is not the same as how volume how what the volume that the matter is occupying. So there are different things, or all different components of the same matter that you are trying to measure. Anything of that you are measuring, anything that you can measure by instrument or by calculation, is quantity, right? So now let's look at the types of quantity. Types of quantity is basically based on two different categories. The first one is types of quantity based on fundamental composition. So what is in that quantity? The fundamental composition of that quantity. So for that we have two types. So type 1 is the basic one, fundamental quantity, or you can call it basic quantity. This one type. And the second type is derived quantity. Yes. So based on the fundamental composition of the quantity that we are trying to measure using an instrument or calculation, we have two types. We have the fundamental quantity or the basic quantity. This is the same. That's one category. The other one is derived quantity. So now what are these? What are these things trying to tell? So fundamental quantity or basic quantity, those are the two types of quantities that we are actually going to explore in the next video. Currently, we need to understand the structure, right? How things are actually related in physics. Yeah, basically we have that. Based on the fundamental composition, we have fundamental quantity, or also called basic quantity. Also on that, you have derived quantity. That will also depend on fundamental quantity. We'll explore that more in the next video, or what those quantities are. Then what's the other category of classifying quantity? The next one is test of quantity based on value, based on the value that you get. So the first one that we talk based on composition, right? But we are basically interested in quantity, because quantity is measuring whatever you measure using the magnitude, right? So the first one is we have the based on the value, we have scalar quantity, and then we also have vector quantity. Yes. So based on the value that we based on the value of the composition, based on the value of the quantity, we have two types: the scalar quantity and the vector quantity. Yes. So this is an introduction to the quantities. So we first say that physics, right, is interested in matter and energy, and then we look into quantity, anything that we can measure by instrument or calculation, right? And then we look at, oh, these quantities too, they have two various categories, and the two various categories are based on the fundamental composition and based on the value. So based on fundamental composition, we talk about fundamental quantity or basic quantity themselves, and then we also have derived quantity, mean derived, right? We'll talk about them in the next video. Then we also have the other composition, the other quantity that we are going to talk about. That's occurring based on value, so scalar quantity and the vector quantity. We'll explore this more in the subsequent videos. Kindly follow us so that we continue to do that. So we are taking our time step by step to understand. So it's very important that you also take your time and understand what we mean at each point. These are the fundamental things, these are fundamental tools that we are trying to gather before we deep into the physics studying the matter and energy itself. So we need these basic tools. So kindly follow us and take this in very critical. And then don't forget to follow our math series so that you also be building your concept in mathematics and then exploring that, because physics is heavily dependent on math. Thank you.